A very warm, good afternoon, at least from my heart. Hopefully, you're somewhere warm. So, I will call to order our February 4th, 2026 African American Heritage Initiative Committee meeting. I'm just delighted to see everyone who is on the call. Hopefully, we'll be joined by a few more of our commissioners. So we'll go ahead and wait for approving the minutes in case we do end up with a quorum. And so we'll wait on the roll call and the approval of the minutes. So we'll move on to the exciting part of the meeting. I have been telling you, I think for the past few months, that I have a wonderful cohort of history major students that have been learning with great joy and motivation and dedication, the best practices for public history, have engaged in all kinds of learning on all different kinds of subjects across several courses. But I've mentioned these wonderful ladies who are on the call today. A few of our others had classes and could not make it, but so we have Miss Linda Fox and Miss Rakisha, who goes by Keisha, Glenn with us. And so they're very dedicated to our project. And so I think with no more chattering from this history professor, I am going to introduce them. They're going to tell you about their background, and I will tell you they are very seasoned, wonderful historical learners, very knowledgeable, wonderful writers, very, very dedicated to history as a field. And both of our ladies have deep, deep roots, deep family roots here. So they have grown up here or returned here as well. And they are both interested in actually applying to be on the committee. So I'm going to be helping them with that at some point soon. But I'm going to go ahead and then turn over to Miss Linda Fox first.
Good evening. My name is Linda Ledbetter Fox. I was born and raised here in Winston. I left in 1976 to go to Athens, Georgia. I came back in 2020 after my husband passed. I was in the Boston Thurman area. I lived there my whole life. I go to St. John's Semi Church. I'm kind of active in the church. I came from a family of 11 children. My mom had 11 children, and so far I've learned a lot about, I love history. I met Dr. V last semester, and I got interested in public history and oral history. And so I'm excited about what's going on in Worcester since I left.
Yes, and Linda's a very humble person, but I have to celebrate this. She helped her husband, supported him, um, and he and his PhD at University of Georgia, and then several of her children and grandchildren are have either earned or are seeking master's and doctoral degrees. And so they were the ones that said, "Hey, mom, hey, grandma, you need to go back and get your degree." And so she'll be finishing her bachelor's degree, but she is very mature, like a graduate student. And she has shared so many wonderful family stories with me. I believe I shared this with Mr. Biggs a few weeks back. Maybe about a week and a half ago, she stayed after another class, the our history methods or traditional history methods course, and told me that I believe it was her older sister whose husband had been an educator, um, gave her or gave the church this old wonderful document that one of the Black principals years ago put together. And so it's this little bio of every Black principal in our public schools across Winston-Salem, Forsyth County schools. I don't know what the year was, but the preciousness of that kind of document, that I told her that's like a treasure. That's an incredible find. So we'll have Mr. Flynn go ahead and copy that and get that into digital and see. But she shared so much with me about growing up in Kimberly Park and about her church. And so one of the things we plan to do is hopefully get some of her older siblings into our archive, and Mr. Flynn can record them. Possibly Linda herself will interview her elders and friends, or we may have Keisha interviewing Linda, who will then share family stories she hears. So we're going to do lots of sessions. So it's not like I'm going to have the lady sit down and record 10 hours. But very, very excited. And as I've noted in some of our past monthly meetings, Linda's really going to be helping me with getting some very solid histories and artifacts, whether pictures, documents, related to where the different neighborhoods, particularly Kimberly Park. And so very, very excited, since she's well aware that neighborhoods are one of our main anchors for our collection area. So I will be helping her to complete the application and get it over, so she can be considered at some point. So she, just a few weeks ago, told me that she thoughtfully and prayerfully came to that decision that she would apply to the committee. So, and by the way, I prayed a lot for some new history majors, and then Linda showed up. uh, so we also have Keisha, who's one of our advanced majors. She's been with me in our history program for 2 years, and she is just absolutely passionate about, especially about local oral history, heritage, and oral history projects. She does plan to go to graduate school and earn her master's in public history. And so, Keisha, share whatever you would like.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keisha. I am a native of Winston-Salem as well, too. 2004 graduate from Carver High School. So just the roots from Carver and also the neighborhood that I grew up in are deeply rooted in a lot of the things that I'm pursuing right now. Yes, I've been with Dr. V for actually it's been since fall 2023. I returned to Winston-Salem State at that time to complete a degree I left off in my earlier years. But this journey has been very enlightening, very amazing, and beautiful overall. I do have a strong interest in the oral histories. It's the perspective of this infinite cycle of collecting these histories and preserving them for each generation that is to come. And so currently, right now, I am working on collecting oral histories from the neighborhood that both of my parents grew up in, which is Morningside Manor. That neighborhood, I've heard so many stories over the years. My grandparents had so many amazing experiences over there, and I'm collecting origin stories. They're great stories of community in that particular neighborhood. So that journey so far has been absolutely enlightening. It's even more beautiful because that if I've stayed pretty much almost on each side of town in Winston, but that has been the most consistent in my life since both sides of my family grew up there. And so a lot of my upbringing is there too. And so I have a lot of memories, but the oral history component is very important to me. They make this easy to collect these histories, especially since Morningside Manor has a reunion every year and they still are very tightly knitted and so to speak. So yeah, I'm glad to be here and glad to officially meet a lot of you that I have heard so much about over time with Dr. V.
Thank you, Keisha. Um, so, um, the ladies were with me earlier. We had a 3 hour Zoom class earlier today, and we were talking and sharing, and they're doing some wonderful work and all kinds of things. Right now, we're doing a topics course, for example, on African American women, with everybody focusing on some different component. And of course, we'll also be looking at some of our great local women. Tiani, who I've mentioned before, she started with Keisha. She's in a class, so she couldn't make it, but she has a special love for Miss Mady Hall Zuma. Keisha and Tiani worked a lot last year on Miss Mady Hall Zuma, so we want to do something. Again, this was Mr. Kwame Fine's idea a few years back that we should possibly have a AHI sponsored Mady Hall Zuma Day. We'd like to apply and get some kind of historical marker put up in to commemorate her. Um, but lots of wonderful work coming from Keisha. She's and both ladies know, along with a few of our other members who couldn't join, that as interns, they're really going to be helping me and all the commissioners this semester as much as possible as we try to go out into the community, into the different neighborhoods, and they'll really be representing us. They will really be, the face of us, along with any commissioners. They're going to be active in doing the oral histories, and so conducting the interviews and just engaging, especially our elders, so they know we're prioritizing the histories of our elders and just talking about the best practices and the reciprocity side, and really uplifting our elders, those who want to be the great storytellers and share their histories. So I'm really excited about this. And if we go back to what our former member, the wonderful Annette Wilson, had said, we do need to get out in the community. It's great to sponsor other projects, but to just be standalone. We are AHI, and so these ladies are very motivated and committed to helping us be out there. We have time, and so I prepared the ladies. I said, it would be great if we could have some open discussions. And so if any of the commissioners, anyone on the call, our beloved councilperson Scipio, I think it would be great to just have some time for open discussion. So if you have any questions or just would like to comment to either lady, this would be a great time.
Dr. Villa Gomez,
Yes,
you did
ma'am.
not see my hand
Oh,
raised.
I'm so bad. No. I have this bad habit.
No, I know that's
I
okay.
close my eyes when I don't do this in the classroom, but I'm terrible. I'm confessing now. I'm terrible. When I talk on Zoom, I sometimes close my eyes. It's
I know.
terrible.
I saw you. I saw
Help
you.
me on that, please, Councilperson Scipio. Help me to get over that.
Okay. Well, I wanted to, Rakisha, one of the things that's really important about Morningside, and I hope as you do your oral histories, to ask people where they lived before they came to Morningside, because Morningside was a white neighborhood that got integrated in the late 60s, 1960s. So it'd be very interesting to see where people lived before they came, because they probably lived in the areas in East Winston that were demolished during urban renewal. And so there are several sections that Blacks moved into once their home places in the East Winston were destroyed, they moved Morningside on the south side of town, and they moved towards the north side. They moved beyond 19th Street off of Cleveland, 21st, 20th Street, and they moved up Patterson Avenue and Greenway and Bon Air Drive, those areas. And so I think the understanding why they moved would be very important. Where they lived before, did they own, did they rent? If there is many of the people who own those homes have gone on, passed on, of course, but it might be that their children have memories of those older neighborhoods, and what made the difference for them. Was Morningside, if they came from some of the tenements that were in East Winston and came into the first real house, could be another rich story to document, because we always believe people always have been where they are when we see them and meet them, and that's not the case. We all have evolved. And what did they, if they lived in another neighborhood, what did they lose in the transition? And what did they gain in the transition? I have lots of friends who moved into Morningside and they raised their children there. And it was they were young adults also. They were young people at that time, under 40 when they moved into Morningside. Some were in their 30s. It was their first homes that were available for them to buy. So that was really, I would just like to encourage you to make sure you ask that. And Kimberly Park was another special area. It has a very long-term history of for African Americans going back into the 30s. Different parts of Kimberly Park. It's changed now, and one of the more fashionable streets was Trade Street. And so it's really important to know where in Kimberly Park people lived, what were the houses like. That was another area that got demolished doing urban renewal. And who were the people who lived in those neighborhoods? One of my great memories is the people who lived in the neighborhood. Who were my neighbors? What did they do? What was it like? Was it just working class? And what did that mean? Did they have, we had nice things. Working, different people had different lifestyles. So I used to go into different people's houses to see what they had because I was nosy. And some people had nice china that they brought out. Some I have in my collection at home, I had a great aunt who grew up during the Depression, and they had a special kind of dinner plates and glassware that was unique to the Depression years. But they, even though it was special, they had gravy boats. People don't even do gravy boats anymore. I've got these two gravy boats that, you never had dinner without having the gravy in the gravy boat on the table. I don't even think my grandkids know about a gravy boat because I don't pull them out. But, just the things that we take for granted, the things that you think but in oral histories is to make sure you don't make an assumption. Because when you make that assumption, you're perceiving them as living the way today's standards are, and it wasn't that way. They evolved. But many people have real traditions of the kind of clothes they wore, and the quality of the clothes they wore, the food they ate, What was it like? Because there are some assumptions we make. We all like collard greens, and we all like chitlins, and we all like fried chicken and fried pork chops, but that may not be true for various households. Uh, it may not be true that people worked. They went to bed with the chickens at 6 and rose with the rooster at 6. So just knowing what those behaviors were versus what we do today is so important. Because that's the piece of history that people just okay, that doesn't matter, but it does matter. Uh, People had very pressed clothes. They didn't wear rough, dry clothes. Uh, and if they had pants, they were creased. And so they had irons. And did they have a steam iron? You take that for granted now, but that wasn't always the case then. And they had those heavy irons that they would, and they starched their clothes. Uh, I mean, just little things that, happen, but that's the way how we like we are today can be because of what we were trained on years ago. So I just wanted to encourage you both to ask the questions that you think you know the answers to, but don't assume. Just so many little details that's the thing I like about history because you can find out what really has changed, and what should we be carrying forward, what things never changed in a home or across generations. Things like saying the grace and the blessing, being thankful for the food. Uh, when I grew up, we didn't hear about childhood hunger as a urgent need. Seems like everybody on my street, there was a pot of something on the stove when you came home from school, whether it was some beans and some cornbread, some collard greens, something. People weren't hungry. At least we didn't talk about it. Maybe they were, and we just didn't talk about it. But just trying to tease out all those things is so important. Um, did faith play a big role in your homes? Was church dramatic for you or not? Everybody didn't go to church in the day, but we know that the church played a vital role in many people's lives, and how they impacted the children. And where did they go to school? Where did the kids go to school? Um, and what were the teachers like? It's amazing. I can name almost every teacher I ever had from first grade up through high school. Um, but when I do scrapbooking, and I've been trying to do scrapbooks for my grandkids, showing them their first 18 years, and they could barely remember their teachers' names because the teacher didn't have the same sense of importance. So when you interview, just everything is important. Every little detail is important. Um, it's just, it's just very important just to know that I still have a washboard that I used to scrub my socks on. Because that's how we used to scrub the socks to make them really clean. I don't do that anymore, but I have that as a reminder. Um, but the materials were different in socks then. So you had to scrub that dirt out. So anyway, uh, that's all I wanted to say on that. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Councilperson Scipio. You're a walking book, really. And these ladies know that I always say I learn so much from you. And it's like you've been with us over the last 2 weeks because a lot of things you touched on, I've been in conversation with either Keisha or with Linda about. So yesterday in our methods class that focuses on early African Christianity, we look at daily life. And so Lisa's not with us, but she asked me to define economics and how we look for economic evidence, because we're reading early African Christian saints' lives, but looking for daily life, looking for what people wore, what people ate. And that's how I was trained at UCLA. So everyday life counts for so much. And I've been reminding all of the interns too that when we do the oral histories, that the preciousness of the everyday life is so important. And a lot of people, a lot of our elders, when we're interviewing them, they don't realize how precious those stories are. So I love that you said all of that. And then Keisha's senior thesis is actually on we're still refining it together, but she will leave WSSU as an expert in the history of fashion, but in particular the history of clothing, everyday clothing, as well as haute couture, and sort of Black identity and fashion. And so when you brought up clothes, I could see her eyes get wide open. And so it was like you were privy to all those conversations, but
Yeah.
she taught us something today in our morning session. Keisha, you want to talk about the escrow thing that you shared with me and Linda and Lisa, about
Definitely.
your neighborhood? Because that was really eye-opening.
So I'll start by saying that you gave me a wealth of knowledge of a question that was actually looming. I had a conversation with my mom about a lot with how the neighborhood even began, and the biggest question that was looming was this a predominantly white area? Because you correlate golf courses with predominantly white areas. So I appreciate you for handing me that piece of knowledge that I was just trying to wrap my head around to see,
Mhm.
if I could find that. And I'm pretty sure the more I interview more people, the more they'll be able to pour more into me. So when I was talking to my mom about the origin story of how it began, she gave me a little bit more about how it was a housing authority initiative and how they created this escrow account for those who pay the rent, their rent and everything. And she told me, just gave me a synopsis of how, for instance, my grandparents, when they moved over there, they would pay their rent, the money would, and things of that nature would go into this escrow account. But if there were times that anyone in the neighborhood would fall behind on their rental payments, they was sometimes was able to access that escrow or partial payments in the escrow account to be applied. I do know she said at some point, I guess when the housing authority pulled out, and I think Morningside was not the only neighborhood. She said something about Cherry View and a few other neighborhoods that was a part of this whole initiative. I guess when were pulling out of it, there was a either move or buy type thing. And so they were able to use, my grandparents were able to use their money in the escrow account towards their down payment towards the house. There was another question that I know that I have to find out about is, was that the initial thing in itself for them to do, for the escrow account to have been created for possible home ownership? So, looming question, still got to do research on.
Yeah, and that's real important. And I had never heard about that being the case for that neighborhood. Um, and so you're absolutely right. Reynolds Park uh, was a, first of all, we just have to see how old those houses are. And we can see that from public records, and the tax records has that. But Reynolds Park was an all white area. It was all white. They had not Ferris wheels, merry-go-rounds and everything. And blacks couldn't go there. And there were some in our Black history, Dr. J. Raymond Oliver helped to integrate Reynolds Park uh, back in the day. There's some newspaper articles on that. If this had been part of the housing authority, I think you should ask them for their records and help them do some research. I can get you the name of some people who, well, you could, yeah, just contact them to get that information. Escrow accounts usually don't go for down payments. They usually are for your taxes and your insurance. And So I don't, know more about that. I do know at least one person who that was where they bought a house. So I could give you the name of that family, and they can tell you, just so you'll have another viewpoint of how they bought their house. um, and the other people I knew who lived there have passed on. Um, but yeah, I certainly can help you get some of that information. And it's really important because this is the other thing. Bowman Gray Stadium was constructed in 1927. And at that time, all of the developments around the stadium were white, except for Columbian Heights, which is at the back of the stadium. That little area was created for Black homeowners exclusively in the day. So, but all of MLK and Morningside, all of that, all the way out, all Walltown, all the way out to Kernersville Road was white for years. So yeah, it's really interesting that that's the legacy of that. But guess what? Reynoldstown, where I grew up, was a white neighborhood too. Most of East Winston was white, and we had only certain streets that blacks were allowed to live in until it converted completely to all black. So it was very interesting dynamic in housing and where we had to live, and then what happened with urban renewal that actually destroyed stable black neighborhoods, nice homes, occupied homes. I had a great aunt and uncle who built their house on Highland Avenue in 1921. They bought their land, which was about a half an acre, and built a beautiful house on Highland Avenue, where St. Stephen's Episcopal Church now stands in that area. But the houses on Highland and the other streets that existed, they were all named after trees like hickory and oak and maple. Those were streets that had houses that black people owned. And that was part of what was destroyed during urban renewal. So anyway, if I can help you in any way, please let me know.
Councilperson Scipio, again, thank you so much. That is so incredibly helpful. You have answered the research question that I gave to Linda last week. So she's doing our public history class, then she's doing an independent study traditional research class. She has a special interest in the redlining. I think her granddaughter gave her a couple scholarly books on redlining, but she is our deed review queen. She's done like 1,000 of those deed reviews for our sponsored project. And so I literally told her last week, well, we need to find out, we need to remember parts of East Winston were predominantly white. And so be keeping your eye out as you review the deeds to see when the restrictions were put on, because there were no restrictions at first. And then with the redlining piece, once those formerly white neighborhoods became predominantly African American, then the redlining zoning came in. And so I literally was saying we need to be finding out and figuring out how we can get to that evidence. And so you gave us that whole narrative. You cannot believe how timely that is. And they knew they were going to learn a whole lot, because I tell them I learned so much from you. So thank you for sharing, and we'll be in touch. So the thing is, both of these ladies will be doing, the public history work, but they're also doing the traditional scholarship, and they're excellent. They read voraciously, and they're beautiful writers. So I know
Dr. Villa Gomez,
yes, ma'am.
one more thing.
Yeah.
It might be helpful that they contact the North Carolina room at our central library because they have files on various African American topics, and they have researchers there that can help you find out information about the neighborhoods, about what was happening. I know there's a Kimberly Park was called the Pond, and they have a big reunion because a water tower collapsed, and it made that area a pond for a short time. It does have they have a lot of snippets from some of the newspapers. Um, and one of the things that we used to have, the Journal used to be a Journal and Sentinel. The Journal was the morning paper and the Sentinel was the evening paper. And they had I think from the early 40s, a black reporter that gave the Negro news.
Oh, wow.
And that was a column in the newspaper. So,
I didn't know that.
There's I found some interesting little tidbits as I did research at the Central Library. Of course, they have all of the newspapers on microfiche, but they have folks there that could help you. Also, one of the best research tools I've ever had on local history are the Sanborn maps that are at the public library, and those were maps that were done for insurance purposes. But the earlier maps showed every neighborhood and the streets, and then you correlate that with the city directories that they have there. They have the Negro section in the city directories. So as you're trying to figure out, I've used them to try to figure out who was living where, when. I've used it for my own personal genealogy. I've done it for my church history. And the maps are very beautiful because you can see what it looked like the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. Those maps are actually on microfiche. I don't work well with that, but they actually have the original maps they'll bring out, and you can actually see the physical layout of neighborhoods. So you can look for Kimberly Park, and you can look for Morningside or the stadium area, and you can start determining when did it get developed. And then if you look at the city directories go into the 2000s, so you can start seeing when people started living in those areas because they finished they were in the city directory. So I found that to be quite intriguing because you can you'll just see how neighborhoods developed and who lived where when. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Flynn can help us, our archivist. He could help us with some of that. But when we were preparing for the We Built This, we actually did the interns at the time. We went over and did a little field trip. So I think we'll have to schedule a little field trip and go over. But that's all really so interesting and helpful. I didn't know that the Sentinel and the Chronicle had a designated Negro reporter.
Yes.
And a section on Negro news. That's really important. Thank you.
It's very interesting to read some of those sections. And I will also tell you this, and it's my last little interruption. Two things. You can apply for the committee online. We have an online application on the cityofws.org website. And if you put in the search for boards and commissions applications, it'll bring you right up to that. So you can fill that out online and submit it. It'll go directly to the mayor's office. And secondly, also I want to tell you to use our historic properties and resources sections of the city of Winston-Salem. The person is Michelle McCullough. And you may contact her, send her an email for questions about neighborhoods and when they were developed. They may have some historical documents that she can put her hands on that support you for Kimberly as well as for Morningside. Um, and I found them to be a real good. Thank you. I see Erica has put the link for the application in the chat. Um, they're really great resource. If you're very specific on your question, they can look for it.
Those are wonderful, actually. So when I taught urban history and aligned it, I guess it was 4 years ago now, to our commission, I used those documents. And of course, some of our interns 2 years ago got to work with Michelle. And we're actually going to teach a public archaeology class in the fall. So hopefully, Michelle's just been so great about, she loves teaching. And so she's been so great about
Yeah.
working with our students, and so we're hoping to really work with her a lot, but in the fall. So, but she's just been so supportive of all the work that our commission does and the students. So, thank you for all those wonderful suggestions. That's so much food for thought, right, ladies? Well, I know we don't have too much time left. I believe we still don't have a quorum, but Director, should we still do the roll call? Should we return to the roll call, and then I can quickly give my last couple of items, since we
I don't see any issue with the roll call, Chair. The only thing that I just wanted to share with the group before kicking it over to Erica to see if she has any upcoming engagement events to share with you, is that we continue to hope to recruit new members to this body. I will say for each person on this call, you are probably one of the most powerful tools we have for recruitment, with pointing people to this important work and getting them engaged and being able to talk about some of the things that we talked about today and some of the shared history that we need to archive and preserve for the betterment of our community. So please, 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 as Councilmember Scipio said earlier, point people to that online application to apply to be a member, and also share the good work that we're doing. Erica, did you have anything you wanted to share with the group about upcoming engagement events?
Actually, we are still in our planning mode, but we are working on our Women's History Month program, our Twin City Trailblazers program. That will be on March 12th, and that's at Delta Art Center. So we're currently preparing for that as well right now. In last meeting, I just wanted to let you know that I reached out to our Parks and Recreation Department about the different programming at the different community centers and what those times look like. Because of course we talked about we have to go to people instead of expecting them to come to us. So I'm waiting on that scheduling. I've also reached out to Kenneth Pettigrew at the Reach Center at the YMCA. We had already had a conversation prior. So it's really a matter of scheduling as well. And Mr. Durov, we had asked about kind of some documents to assist with some of those oral history interviews. But these ladies who have been doing this, I'm sure you have that information already, but I have compiled that information, so it will go out in your next packet. Any questions?
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Simon. And we're looking forward to working with the elders and going to them, as you've said. So I know even after my seat here ends, of course, I'll still be trying to support the work of the commission. So I'll try to go out if there's a team and help with those. And I mean, Mr. Dra is a great interviewer and has that history background, so we can definitely just collaborate and see who who might want to be the lead interviewer for any given interview as we move forward. But I think, Miss Simon, you are great with that. I wish you could be on our commission.
Yeah, but I'm on it, I guess. But just one more addition. I did have a young man contact me, and he sounded very excited about joining the commission. So I did direct him on the phone to the application. So hopefully he got that submitted. And again, like Director Big said, you guys are kind of our first line of defense, I guess, and getting people excited about doing this work. And so we're excited about bringing folks on.
Oh, that's very exciting. It would be great if he became a history major. But that hopefully we'll meet him soon. That's wonderful. I did want to just go back real quickly because this would probably be of interest to Reverend Camille. So Dr. Eric Grail, who is my colleague, he teaches our Black history course. He's taught it for years and years. And so one of his assignments, sort of the final assignment, has been for all of his students to pick one historic Black church in town, go there, interview the pastor, interview at least one of the older members, and take pictures and look at whatever kind of materials they have, old history, whatever they have, and then they do like a kind of a photographic essay and presentation. So I asked him if he'd be willing to have that service, sort of a service learning project component, add that. So we've officially, I helped him officially put that into that course. So at the end of this semester, then there will be several students who have done that kind of work. And then we're hoping that they'll be willing to maybe have Mr. Flynn and his team record them, and we can then post their presentations where they would be quoting the pastors, quoting the elders that are interviewed, and maybe sharing some visuals. And so we're excited about that. So I just wanted everyone to know, but especially our Reverend here, to know that there's that going on. So even though we don't officially have a church subcommittee right now or subcommittee chair, Dr. Gray, who's been doing this, is going to be supporting the work of the committee, and we'll get a lot of young people engaged in that. So I'm really excited about that. I think because we don't have a quorum, we should probably table our discussion of the subcommittee appointments and the vice chair discussion till next month. But I'm going to defer back to Director Biggs, and so I think I've shared everything, and but I guess I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry, Reverend, I didn't give you a chance to respond, so forgive me.
No forgiveness needed. It's all good.
Thank you, Reverend. We'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Chair, that's all staff had in respect to staff updates. If there are any other items you'd like to cover on the agenda, you're more than welcome.
Thank you, Director Biggs. No, I think I've shared what I wanted and hoped would be relevant. And we always leave a few minutes for anyone to ask final questions or share final thoughts. Does anyone have any suggestions, any questions, anything they'd like for us to discuss before we adjourn? Mr. Dura?
Yes. One of the things that I'm interested in is I'm interested in transitional communities in Winston-Salem. I lived on West 11th Street across the street from what is now Lafayette A. Cook Elementary School. And my parents moved to where I live now on Kingsgate Drive back in 60, I want to say 64. I think that's about right. Could have been, yeah, 64. And so when we moved here, this was a completely new community, a new subdivision inside Cityview. And Cityview at that point in time was predominantly white. And then over time, it transitioned into the community that we now know as Cityview. I'm kind of interested in um, what happened to communities that transitioned, and how did African Americans find themselves in that transition and as a part of emerging communities. Like my grandmother lived on Camel Avenue, and I stayed with her most of the school year because my mother worked in Yanceyville, North Carolina, which was sort of north of Greensboro. And so she would leave on Monday morning before I awakened, and she would come back Friday evening. But it'd be interesting to see what that neighborhood on Camel Avenue and Farrell Street and Temple, where Annette's mother lived, and her brothers lived there. What was that neighborhood like? And was it a transitional community? So that's what I'm interested in pursuing, and I hope to actually create a research protocol for looking at that in the coming year. So that's what I'm really interested in.
Well, Mr. Dura, that was so beautifully articulated. We see your academic background, and I know you're very analytical and theoretical. I love what you just said, and I think it actually aligns with what Councilmember Scipio was speaking about, and with this sort of research question that both Keisha and Linda brought up in terms of, especially with Keisha's family being part of a transitional neighborhood. And now we're learning from Councilperson Scipio that Kimberly Park was in that. And so really, I haven't seen too much scholarly literature on that that transition, that important change. So maybe we can all put our heads together and think about how to do something. But I would just encourage you, maybe you and I can get some questions together. What you just shared about your own family obviously is evidence. And so we could have Keisha interview you, or myself, or Linda, maybe Miss Simon. So your actual family's history in that way is perfect for our archive. So let's think about that. But thank you for sharing, because we all learned that today, or at least I learned that today. That's a real nugget.
Let me say this.
There.
Let me say this last thing. I'm a University of Chicago trained researcher, so what you hear in that is the amount of attention that the University of Chicago pays to research and stewardship over good research. So that interest I have is from having lived in a couple different neighborhoods, and then seeing how the community I live in now has evolved into the neighborhood that I live in and the surrounding neighborhood. So I'm just really interested in what that was like, how it happened, what kinds of political forces brought that into existence, that sort of thing.
Well, and of course you had that great fortune of being educated there for your advanced degrees. It is the birthplace of urban studies and urban history, as well as other important things like social work, the professionalization of social work, but also just the idea of looking at the church as an institution that grounds Black municipal neighborhoods. all of
Right.
that is wonderful. So you bring that to us, and I know that, for example, one of the great early Black ballerinas,
Mm.
I can't remember her name right now, but she was educated there in anthropology, and she did all of that wonderful work in the Caribbean. And early on, she was in the doctoral program there. So at least some African Americans were highly educated. I believe Dr. Atkins' daughter went to the University of Chicago. Councilperson
Mm.
Scipio, am I correct on that? One of his children attended there, I believe, for library science. So, well, everyone, this has been such an engaging, enriching meeting today, and I thank you for all of your support, all of your contributions. I want to thank Keisha and Linda for coming, and what a joy it is for me. As you all can see that I learned so much. It's such a blessing when you learn from your own students and they become your teachers. And I really think they're going to help us in growing our project and getting our projects what we are and what we do, helping to get us out there in the community. So before we adjourn, my only announcement is that our next meeting, I believe, will be, if we keep Wednesdays and we keep the 2 p.m., then I believe it would be March 4th. I know it's our hope and prayer that we'll be able to finally start meeting in person. Maybe that'll happen in March, and maybe it'll be on the 4th. But if we're keeping the Zoom meeting, then it'll be Wednesday, March 4th. So that is all I have to share. If
And
there's nothing else,
just a
yes,
follow up. You were mentioning the scheduling.
yes.
Per Councilmember Scipio's suggestion a few meetings ago, we have spoken with some members about the potential for changing that time. I think the consensus was that we would keep the same day, but explore maybe after 5 hour, and then look at maybe some kind of in-person versus virtual format as well. So once we have a quorum and can actually address that in a formal fashion, we'll do so, but that has been explored.
Thank you for that update, Director Biggs. Yes, let's hope and pray we have a quorum in March so we could have our April meeting in person. So we'll be thinking positively about all of that. Thank you so much, everyone. Please stay safe and warm. If there's anything you have that you would like myself and our team of interns to work on, please call me or email me and we will get on it. Please stay safe and warm. And I will now call this meeting to an end. Take good care. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.